Buddy, I am Branden, sole owner of Seal Pro Painting and the host of the Off the Ladder podcast. We exist to help home service business owners learn so that they can lead well and ultimately live life off of the ladder. I'm excited about today's guest. We have Janine Chambers here. She is the owner of Growth Virtual Services and Home Service Pro VA. She specializes in jobber setups, jobber consulting and training, business and business development. She's been in business for 3 years. Her business service area is Canada, US, and UK. She is an owner operator with no employees. And for her herself, if you're interested in maybe learning about being a virtual assistant, her annual revenue that she does is $100,000 a year if needed. And then let's go into her bio really quick. We'll read a little bit about her. She is or she helps owner operators and small business owners in the trades move out of survival mode, and that is all too common. She helps them use Jobber and its integrations to take their businesses from running in their head to creating simple and repeatable processes and systems that improve their customer experience and open the door to automation and outsourcing. Most small business owners burn up their time through admin, 1 to 2 hours per day or more. So she helps them to become purposeful with their admin work and fully utilizing the tools and the workflows that Jobber has to offer. So, Janine, it's a pleasure to meet with you today and jump into this topic of virtual assistants, the admin side of the home service businesses, and just the necessity of systems and processes. And, I was introduced to you through Jobber. I've seen you out there. I was a speaker at Jobber Summit. I know that you have been as well. I've seen you very active in the Jobber entrepreneurship group on Facebook. You've even helped me with implementing my subscription service into my business with Jobber. So yeah, is there anything else that you'd like to say about yourself and the services that you offer?
Thanks for having me first and foremost. But my background kind of started in the trades I worked in landscaping, I worked in a welding shop. So yeah, I just really love setting up services and kind of fine tuning processes in the business, systems in the business. Been very blessed to work in small business where I have that freedom and opportunity to kind of implement things that maybe weren't in place before. And I've just kind of moved forward trying to help other people do the same. So yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think you pretty much nailed it, what I do and who I work with and why I work
Yeah.
with them. But yeah.
And I think what you do is so needed because, like, this podcast, it's about helping guys out there, gals out there who are running home service businesses. They're doing the work, they're in the field day to day, and they're dreaming of, like, how in the world do I get to the point where I can get out of the field and go just work on my business, hire employees, have the systems and processes in place. And I think that can be overwhelming for some of them.
Well, really just have a life. Like I see people all the time just overwhelmed, stressed out, overworked. They're out in the field all day working and then they come home and they have to do quotes and they have to do estimates and they're wondering how they can send their estimates out at midnight without making their customers' phone go off. So it's really important to make sure that these things can either be automated or scheduled, or it takes 5 minutes in the morning to go through your requests. Like if you're using Jobber and you have a request form, you can go through those things quickly and just send out quotes or have somebody else send out quotes for you. It kind of opens the door to more help for you. So that's
Yeah.
really my end goal, either making it manageable for the people I work with, if they would like to keep doing that stuff themselves, or if they would like to look into outsourcing, then if they have those processes in place, that really helps them focus on other things and maybe enjoy life a little bit more than, just working so hard in their business around the clock.
Yeah, and I mean, the reality is that there's going to be some um, people out there who are working in their business, and when they make this transition off the ladder, they're going to find that some of these things that they need to do and implement are not their strengths. I think
Hmm.
one of the keys of being a successful business owner is knowing your strengths and your weaknesses, and then being able to delegate the things that you're not great at to somebody else who is, because that's ultimately going to be how you are able to scale and grow your business. So, for those people out there who are still in the field wanting to get out, there should be a good amount of them that consider a service like yours, because you're going to be able to help them to implement the things that maybe they're not passionate about, which, like you said, is going to free them up to focus on what they are good at.
Well, and a lot of I find when I started working with people in the trades virtually is that they just can't imagine anyone liking what I do. Like they think everyone hates doing the paperwork and,
Right.
everyone falls asleep at the desk when they sit down, and I love it. That's my thing. That's what I'm good at. I love building systems and doing the paperwork and sending the invoices and talking to the customers. Like that's my
Mhm.
thing. But for a lot of home business or home service businesses, that's not their thing. That's the part
Yeah.
that they have to do. It's not the part they want to do. So that's why I ended up going into virtual assistants. I now really focus on helping people get their business kind of organized, because when I got into it, I realized most VAs really couldn't help most home service businesses where they're at currently.
Mhm.
So either they didn't have processes in Jobber, or, they're still really operating their business out of their head. And,
Right.
every day is a new day and they're just kind of surviving through that. So because I have experience with trades, I figured why not help those people get to a point where they can then outsource, where
Yeah.
it's a nice, neat little package they can hand off to a virtual assistant or a remote employee and just run with it from there.
Yeah.
Because it's not
You know,
helpful if you have to answer questions 100 times a day when you
right.
hire somebody. So yeah.
I think one of the challenges that people out in the field wanting to get off the ladder face is they constantly think of the expenses of, like, for example, implementing Jobber into their business, or hiring a virtual assistant or somebody to help them with the admin roles. And can you speak from your personal experience on how that investment can help these home service business owners grow and scale their business? I mean, how do they overcome that mindset? Because I can remember, like, for me, even before I had Jobber, I was thinking like, oh my goodness, how do I pay for a Jobber? And it's so, like, when I think back to it, I'm like, it's so silly, because now I'm like,
Yeah.
it's such a small investment compared to the level of, like, organization and efficiency it gives you to grow and scale, right? So, yeah,
Mhm.
just talk about that, overcoming that barrier in your mindset.
So, first things first, as a business owner, your time is valuable. You only have so much time. Everyone wants it. And there's a lot of stuff that you do in your business you don't get paid for, really. I mean, yes, you can get more work out there to pay your salary, but it's not free for you to do anything. Like you really
Right.
could be making more money if you had more time.
Yeah.
So, the first thing, obviously, getting help so that you can grow your business, so that you can sit down and work out your numbers and do really what you need to do. Um, and even if it's just outsourcing some of your admin work so that you can do that, I mean, most home service businesses start in somebody's living room. So you don't want to have strangers coming into your house to work for you, and you don't want to, bring on a tech that doesn't help do any of the invoicing or things like that. Now you just got more work to do. So if you can kind of outsource some of that, also admin always seems like an expense because they don't make money, but they do. They answer your phone for you. They send your emails for you. They communicate with your customer. They make sure that your schedule is good and your invoices are going out and your bills are getting paid, like things like that. So they
Yeah.
really are critical parts of a business, and it shouldn't be the last thing that you invest in. As far as Jobber or any other CRM, so with Jobber, there's 3 plans. The first couple plans are actually an expense because they don't have that um, possibility of upselling. They don't have quote follow-ups. They don't have some of the features. The Connect plan is actually getting really great. So at least go there if you can.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of people on legacy plans as well that I really recommend getting off of because they don't get a lot of the new upgrades and things like booking confirmations and things like that that really do make life easier. They save a phone call. So
Yeah.
one upsell can pay for grow for that month, depending on what you do. I mean, if you're doing a $10 service or something, maybe that is a little different. But for you with painting, if you can say, hey, we can do the hallway too. Do you want to do that? And if they're like, oh yeah, sure. Or, you want to do your trim if we're doing the whole house.
Right.
Because I'm sure the trim doesn't look that great after you paint your entire house.
Right.
So, just things like that can pay it off quickly, or add $20 to every quote that you send out. I recommend a lot too. Just
Yeah.
it'll pay for itself very quickly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as soon as I implemented the grow plan into my business, we grew. I mean, remember the first year we implemented it. That year we grew like over 35%.
Mhm.
And it was like attributed to just the efficiency that my business was then able to operate at, and the quote follow-ups. Like I remember it'd blow my mind. I'd send a quote, and then I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have like these jobs that had been approved in my sleep and
That is the
deposits paid.
best.
I would be like, wake up and I'd be like, yes, that's amazing. I didn't even talk to this person. Like
Yeah.
Jobber sent the automatic quote follow up. They got the follow up. They approved the deposit, and now I just have to schedule their job. So I I love those automations that you get on those
Well, it
higher
can
tier
save
plans.
a lot of time too for the business owner. I mean, if you're going, obviously for you, you probably need to see the site. So, I mean, if you're doing an exterior paint or something, you probably need to go to the house, look at the house.
Right.
But for people that do maybe lawn care, like there's no reason not to have set pricing for your fertilizer. Most business owners know before getting to a house how much that's going to take, or like things that are more repeatable, or like pest control applications and things like that, you don't need to meet with the customer.
Right.
So Jobber has the work request form, which is not really utilized by a lot of people, and it should be. I mean,
Hmm.
I've worked for businesses virtually where that work request comes in. I process the work request, I'll send a quote with their preset pricing and send it out to the customer. They'll approve it and pay a deposit for, say, their first application.
Hmm.
And they're on for the full season, and no one talked to them.
Right.
Not one person. It's because
Yeah.
all of that automation was in place where they could send it to me. I can look up their address on Zillow or realtor.com or something like that and just go from there. I can see their property size or their square footage. So if you
Yeah.
can automate any of that with Jobber, having all your price lists and things in there, all your products and services, it's absolutely worth the investment.
Yeah. And the way that I think about this, and I'm just the other day, Jobbers Masters of Home Service podcast brought out another episode with Christine Hodge.
Mhm.
And they talked about like creating an Amazon like experience in the home service businesses, right? And that, like what you're saying right now, makes me think of that. And
That's what
the
I work towards. If
yeah.
Amazon can do that with a cajillion people, and you
Mhm.
could watch McDonald's get delivered to your house from, you know, Uber Eats or
Yeah.
Skip the Dishes or whatever, then why can't you know when your tradesperson is coming?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
that client hub also really isn't utilized by a lot of people, but it should be because customers
Mhm.
want to know when you're coming. And if you have
Yeah.
them on the schedule, they can see and they're not
Yeah.
going to call you.
Yeah.
Like they don't, if you took a big deposit for a job, like you're holding someone's thousands of dollars, they want to
Mhm.
know you're coming and they want to know when you're coming. And,
Yeah.
it's stressful working with somebody that is holding your cash.
Yeah.
And the people that check their tracking number when they know their parcel hasn't even left the building yet, like
Mhm.
those people, they really benefit from things like Jobber.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It builds trust, right?
It
So
does.
when customers get these consistent communication, because how many times, well, for me, I've sat with a lot of customers and will say, "Hey, we require a 50% deposit and 50% at completion of your job." In some cases, that's thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And but what gives us that credibility and trust is like before we've even come to do the estimate, we've already communicated with that customer like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
They got a notification when they put in a request, and we thank them for putting in a request, and then we scheduled their estimate, and then they get a confirmation that they booked an estimate with us, and then they get a reminder that we're coming, and then when we're on our way, we send one of those texts and say, "Hey, we're 10 minutes away." So it's building that trust that okay,
They know
this
you're coming.
yeah,
Like
this
the
company
client hub too, they can
values
see like
yeah.
that's a peace of mind to them. And
Mhm.
contractors they have a bad reputation for not showing up. Every time I say that I'm working with home services, everyone's like, "Oh, thank God." Because, they have to hunt them down and call them and look for them. And when are you
Right.
coming? Why aren't you here? And, where's my invoice? And then all of a sudden the contractor shows up their door looking for money. And, they're
Yeah.
like, well, I don't have a check for you right now. But, the contractor needed it 2 weeks ago. So Jobber is really good at just taking all the work out of that and keeping your
Mhm.
customers off your back for the main part. And
Yeah.
it makes it easier to contact you. Everyone wants to book online now. Like I always say, like baby boomers are kind of moving out of home services, and you are dealing with millennials now, and they
Right.
don't want to call you. They won't call
Mhm.
you. If they can find an online request form, I myself will not book anyone that doesn't have an online request form,
Mhm.
mostly because I think of what I need at 8 o'clock at night. Like that's when I
Right.
hear my toilet running and my sink dripping and oh,
Yeah.
that spot on the baseboard is growing because I have a leak. I'm not gonna set my alarm for 9 a.m. to call a plumber. I'll forget about it the next day. And then that night again, oh, like I forgot again. So
Yeah.
it's just, that's the one thing I really love about Jobber is the work request form. Most
Yeah.
CRMs, they still fully rely on phone calls.
Right.
So yeah, that's it's a necessity at this point. You have to
Yeah.
have a way to book online or contact online. It doesn't have to be booking.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think contractors who are listening to this should you have to be self-aware, right? You have to realize like if you're that person who is not going to communicate well, if you're that
Mhm.
person who it's like no matter how hard you try, you're just not a good communicator. Well, like realize that's a weakness of yours and it's going to affect your customer experience and your customer
Mhm.
relationship, right? So instead of allowing that to create, especially on scale, like if you're going to grow your business and you're going to get out of the field and your business is growing, those places where you're weak are going to only amplify
Yeah.
problems on scale. So
Yeah.
you have to be self-aware and say, okay, I'm not good at this. It doesn't matter how hard I try, I am not going to be a good communicator with my clients. I need to outsource that to a virtual assistant who is going to make sure my customers get communicated with consistently. So I think just again emphasizing like be self-aware of what you're not good at and
Mhm.
implement the systems and processes that you need to support your business where you're weak.
Mhm. Well, and everyone's got a pile on their desk that they put stuff on the bottom, like, "Oh, I have to do that thing. I have to, fill out that insurance compliance thing. I have to send out invoices today, or I have to follow up on payments or follow up on quotes." And a lot of people don't enjoy doing that. But
Right.
a remote worker or a virtual assistant, they don't have that connection that you do. If somebody owes you money, they're not scared to make that phone call and say like, "Hey, what's up? Can I help process your payment? Do you have any questions? Did you get the invoice?" They can do follow-ups with customers to ask for more work, because I think most people that own a business think they're being annoying when they do that, and they're not, and they want to hear from you. They want to talk to you. I mean,
Right.
don't send them 8 emails in a week, but just having somebody say, "Hey, we haven't heard from you this year." And that's something that you probably don't have time to do as a business owner, but you can
Hmm.
say, "Hey, can you call these people? Or can you send out an email to these people?"
Right.
Or, managing a maintenance plan. So in HVAC, a lot of people have trouble managing their maintenance plans. You can have a remote worker or outsource somebody that's their job. That's what they do. They contact clients that are up for their renewals. They contact clients to book those appointments and kind of fill the schedule where needed. Whereas if that was falling on you, it probably is just going to fester.
Hmm.
Or, annual clients for lawn maintenance or snow removal that have like a 6-month contract. You should have somebody following up on that, not you. You already
Right.
got that sale. Now somebody else can keep that customer happy.
Right.
Yeah.
Two things I want to hit on is so one, um, talking about like the cost of a virtual assistant. Maybe there's like business owners out there who are thinking like they've already decided in their mind they can't afford it, right? Or that it's going to be something like just not reasonable. So let's talk about that, and then let's also after that let's jump into um Jobber as a whole, and those that maybe look at Jobber and say like I've tried it, or maybe I've looked at it and I don't think it's a great software. Before the show, we talked about this. Is like some people, it's a user problem, not a software problem, right? It's like you don't know how to use it, so you think that it's terrible, but the reality is like you just don't know how to use the software. So let's
I
talk
like to
about
call it
those.
a process problem.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
just
let's
um
let's hit on first the cost, and then let's talk about like just the software and in general, and like the fact that it really is useful. And so costs, what is somebody who's like sitting back and they're thinking, oh wow, this sounds really helpful, what should somebody expect to pay for a virtual assistant and their services?
so there is a very wide range of pricing for virtual assistants, and it depends on a lot of things. There is international outsourcing, which personally I don't really agree with. A lot of times these people are working for very little amounts of money, which may seem okay because they live in the Philippines or like a lower cost of living country, but most times these people are working for $2, $3 an hour, and you're paying five, and half of that goes to the people that employ those virtual assistants. They're
Hmm.
working nights away from their kids, and they're working for not enough. Um,
Right.
so I mean, it's totally fine to outsource overseas. Just maybe do it on your own terms and pay that person an appropriate wage.
Yeah.
Um, if you have a market that would rather have that like in-person receptionist feel, I guess, so you want your customer to believe they are working with someone in your company, it is best to outsource domestically. So either like US, Canada, UK, get somebody in your area or in your country or in your continent, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, with Jobber, you can really bring down your admin time to an hour or two a day. Don't try not to expect a virtual assistant to work for you 8 hours a day and answer things immediately when they come in. Um, a person's time is valuable as well. And when you're working with domestic, the price goes up. It could be anywhere between generally like $30 to $50 an hour in your local currency for the most part, which seems crazy and expensive. But if you hired somebody that could just walk in, sit down, and do the thing, that pays for itself. And
Hmm.
they're not constantly asking questions of, because they understand your market or they understand your industry. You can get really industry specific virtual assistants, which
Right.
is why I created Home Service Pro VA. Is I talk to these virtual assistants. I make sure that they are legitimate businesses. I mean, I personally can't use Fiverr and, where other people find the virtual assistants. I find it really overwhelming.
Hmm.
So, I just wanted to create a platform that is for home services to find virtual assistants or
Right.
freelancers of any kind,
Hmm.
bookkeepers, social media people, whatever they need, whatever they can outsource, take off their own plate.
Right. I want to circle back to a couple of things that you mentioned and just kind of
Yeah.
comment on those. I can't agree more with the outsourcing to, like, let's say the Philippines or something. I mean, I understand why people do it, right? And
Hmm.
um but I kind of take the same approach as you. Is like, there's two reasons I don't like it. One, um I have like a standard of generosity in my own
Hmm.
life, right? And so, like, I want people to be blessed. So I think
Like
that
make
they
someone's
should
life
be,
better if you
yeah.
can.
Well, it's
Yeah.
like you could look at it as like, well, if I'm gonna pay somebody there, why not pay them really well and better their life, right?
Hmm.
Maybe it's not like exactly what you would pay somebody here, but like you said, like $2 to $3 an hour. It's just, yeah. But
Yeah,
anyway, so
it's
that's one thing. And then the other thing I wanted to say is, I can't tell you, one of the reasons why I won't do it is because of language barriers.
Mhm.
Even if it's just like a slight, and I know that it bothers me, like, if I talk to somebody on the phone and they have, like, a virtual assistant in another country, and I'm talking to them and I can't understand what they're saying,
Yeah.
and or they can't understand me, and it can be really frustrating.
And I think we're
And
all really tired of call centers. And
yeah,
even if that person doesn't work for a call center, you probably assume that they do.
right,
Um, and you're not talking to somebody that works at the business, which is why sometimes I recommend getting a domestic VA or a
right,
remote worker. It could be someone that works for you on your payroll. VAs do not. They are a subcontractor. They set their own hours and own whatever. But even a remote employee is a good option. Most admin people don't need to be on site to do their job. It's actually
hmm,
better if they're not. If you have, because maybe you're not giving them enough work and you are paying them for 8 hours a day. Why? If they only have 1 to 2 hours a day that they're doing because Jobber has streamlined everything, why pay
right,
somebody 8 hours to sit there to answer maybe a phone call?
yeah,
Jobber can also substantially reduce the amount of phone calls you get. And
hmm,
there is like voice over IP programs and things like that that make sitting at a desk to answer a phone not necessary.
right,
So, yeah, that's what I help people try and grasp and understand is that you can do business however you want these days. There is no
right,
like, you need an office person at this point in the game. You need this at this point. It's how you want to do it today. If you hate
hmm,
answering the phone and you let it go to voicemail every time, outsource it. Like,
right,
because you're hurting yourself.
yeah,
So,
absolutely,
yeah, you don't want to lose sales because of things that you don't like doing. So,
yeah,
if you want to outsource that from day one, do it. Build it into your pricing and do it.
Yeah. And that's such a good point is like I think a big barrier that people have, even in scaling and growing a company, is the fact that you're not going to be able to do it by yourself. And a lot of that, one of the first like objections that people come up with in their mind is cost. Like, I
Mhm.
can't afford to hire somebody. If I like, how am I going to pay for that? Um, and it really, the solutions are simple. It's like you increase your price because you've increased your value. It's not, I think some people even get into like I've talked to different buddies of mine or other home service business owners about these topics, and they're like, how can you charge somebody that much? It's like, well, I'm
Ah.
offering more value. I'm offering a better experience,
Mhm.
So I'm not going to I'm not going to offer that value for free. I'm not going to offer this service for free. I have to charge accordingly. And so, and I think some people think like, well, people won't pay for that. Like, well,
And that's not up
actually,
to
they
them. They don't
will.
get to decide what people can afford. I
Yeah.
think, especially in home services, most of the customers are pretty well off. They're not, they have quite a bit more money than maybe the person working for them. So don't, and I think what's important to me is not important to you, and what's important to you is not important to me.
Right.
So if somebody wants like a ridiculous water slide in their backyard, give them a ridiculous price for that,
Yeah.
because they probably don't care about the inside of their house. They love
Right.
the outside of their house, or vice versa. Like,
Yeah.
I'll spend my last dime making my house feel homey. Like, that's my
Yeah.
thing. But I don't really care about the yard that much. Or
Yeah.
I care about the part I can see from my kitchen window, but that's it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
You
just
know,
try not to assume what your customer wants or can afford, because
right.
you're probably wrong.
Yeah. Well, I just thought of like Amazon, for example. Like when you go and you check out with Amazon, you have, different shipping options, and it's like, standard is free, but you're not going to get that for, what, 5 to 7 business days.
Hmm.
And then you have these options like, oh, you can sign up for Prime and you can get it same day. Or you can pay additional and get it in 2 to 3 business days, or you can pay X amount of dollars and have it tomorrow. And like, could you imagine if Amazon was like, well, each one of these options build value, but we're going to do it at the same price. Like, we're just
Yeah.
going to no additional
That we
price
saw
to
somewhere
get it
else online.
tomorrow. It's like,
Yeah.
well, we're going to get it to you today and we're going to go out of our way and it's going to build value for you. Like you want this, that's what you want. And so we're going to charge you for that because
Hmm.
it's building value. And so I think in the same way, like you're saying, we can't assume that people aren't going to pay for those increased value that we're putting
Yeah.
into the service. So I think, every time that I've added something into my business and I've raised my price, I've thought to myself, I've increased value here, and my customers will pay for that experience, that value that I'm bringing to the table. So
Well, and I know that increasing price is scary, but you don't have to do everything all at once. You don't have to, this is my new price, everyone's paying it. I'm sending this out to my customers tomorrow that their rate's going up 10%. Start it on your new quotes.
yeah.
Because, I mean, unless you have no customers, then obviously do like every second quote or something. Or if there's a job that you really, really want, you know it sells for this price, fine. Like, do the thing. But
Hmm.
if you really need to increase your price, which most people do,
Yeah.
like pretty much everyone I've worked with, I've encouraged them to increase their price, because
Yeah.
now they're paying me, now they're paying for Jobber, now they're paying for this, now they're paying for that. And them using Jobber is a huge value added service.
Yeah.
Like, Jobber, I don't, if you're like a reports person, maybe Jobber's not for you. But if you're an owner operator, Jobber is a game changer, because you don't have to talk to your customer 10 times a day. You don't have
Right.
a notebook that you're carrying around anymore that could be left at a gas station. Like,
Hmm.
you just have your whole world in your phone or iPad or whatever. Like, and you can send them a text when they text you. Like,
Right.
I've worked for businesses, you cannot get a hold of their customers on the phone ever. Like,
Hmm.
obviously their customers maybe have, you know, their phones silenced all day, or they're at work and they can't answer. And we're just really busy people these days. So this phone game that we're playing with people, it doesn't work anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
No.
answer my phone ever. I
Yeah.
hate it. So
Yeah.
I
I'm
want
the
somebody
same
to
way.
text me, and I forget everything. So if I can see that text, oh, my appointment's at 2 o'clock on Wednesday, I can go back to that text 100 times. I cannot look at a phone call. I
Yeah.
can't remember a phone call. I can't find where I put the note about that phone call. Like,
Yeah.
it's so handy to have these communications through Jobber that you can just send to all your customers and not worry about it. And it goes
Yeah.
out automatically. And
Yeah.
it provides accountability too.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we like assume how people want to be communicated with, right?
Mhm.
So it's like we assume like everything's the way it used to be, where like you have to make a phone call. And it's like actually um studies have shown that people are more responsive to text messages, right? So like even
Put it on your
with
work
like,
request. How do you like to be contacted? Do
yeah,
you like phone calls, texts, emails? Ask
yeah,
them. They'll tell you. And most times it is not come to my house and call me. That is not what people want anymore. I
hmm.
know sometimes it's easier to sell things when you go on site, but and
I've sold
sometimes
so many jobs without even like in painting, right? Painting, like
mhm,
most people think like I have to go on site to bid a job, and I've bid so much, especially COVID really accelerated that because we
it
didn't have
did.
really any choice. So we learned the system and the process to do it, and like to make sure that our numbers are accurate. But yeah, with Jobber we can do that. And I want to hit really quick, like I have a higher um, open rate on my quotes through text messages than the
Mhm.
emails.
It's
So
easier to
like
sign
I
them
have
and pay
I have
them.
so many people who I'll send them an email with the quote attached, and they don't ever look at it, or they tell me like, "Oh, I didn't see it." But like if you send it as a text, like everybody sees their text messages, right?
Mhm.
So I love the ability to communicate through text with Jobber. My guys love having like the assigned phone number in Jobber, to
Yeah.
where like we can text our clients. So like my lead painters, they like being able to send a message to the customer when they're on their way and say like, "Hey, we're 10 minutes out from your home." But yeah, text messaging is like a huge way to communicate. I like you, I don't like taking phone calls. One is because I like some people will like it's like a waste of time. It's like we could have had
You
this
can't get some people off
conversation.
the phone.
Yeah. It's like this conversation could have been had in like two text messages versus a 20-minute phone call, because it just
Mm.
it opens up like going down rabbit trails and talking about stuff that you weren't even going to talk about. So yeah, text messages are great.
It's
Um
good for outsourcing too, I just wanna say quick, because some of the customers that I have, I'll send the customer a text message through Jobber. I wouldn't be able to do that unless I answered their phones through like a voice over IP program. But
mhm,
through Jobber, I can send an email through Jobber on the client profile. I can send a text to those customers. And like that one business that I work with, that you literally, I have not been able to get a hold of a single customer yet by phone. Not one. They don't answer their phones, period. So I send them text, they answer. Like, I don't have to worry about them checking their email or checking their voicemail. Like,
mhm.
I think the only person that leaves me a voicemail is my mom. So I don't ever look at my voicemails. But,
Right,
like, it's just, we have to come to where people are now.
right,
And it makes life a lot easier.
right. Let's talk about this. Taking kind of a shift. What
Yeah,
are what's some of the most common ways that you see contractors, home service business owners misusing Jobber? So, like we had mentioned before the show, that sometimes it can be a user error, not a software error, or as you mentioned,
mhm.
a process error. Is that what you said? A process error or
Yeah,
process
well, they
problem?
just so with Jobber, the biggest thing is that people don't use the whole workflow. So with Jobber, you should be using the request, or if you're not using the request, at least use it for on-site assessments. Then you convert that into a quote, convert that into a job, convert that into a visit, convert that into an invoice, and then it gets paid. And that thing just clears the whole dashboard. But
Yeah,
if you throw these little barriers in between, like, oh, well, I don't use it for my scheduling, or I don't use that request form, I use Jot form, or I use my
yeah,
online form. And I'm like, well, now you got to take your online form and put it into Jobber, which is a manual task, or even if you have a Zap, let's say. But the
hmm,
work request form can really be a like a condensed version of your website. It should say like, hey, it should take place of a phone call. Tell us about your space. What are you looking to
yeah,
have done? What's important to you? And how do you want us to talk to you? When can we
yeah,
come see you? And now you don't have to call that person. But if
yeah,
somebody fills out the first name, last name, email, phone number form, now you have to put it in Jobber. You have to call them, which they probably won't answer, and you're playing phone tag with this person. I mean, you can put them in like some crazy marketing automation. It doesn't mean they're going to talk to you. Instead, you could just have that request form come in, you find them a time for their estimate and send it to them. Say, hey, I can come by this day. Does this work? Over text. And they're like, yeah, great. See you then.
yeah,
Or if you don't have to go there, you could have on your form. Do you want me to come there? Most times
hmm,
they're going to say no, especially in a big city because they have to commute to work. They don't want to come home and meet you in the middle of the day during the week. So
yeah,
if you can do it virtually, that customer is yours.
yeah,
And then, the other thing that I see is products and services. Make some set products and services and stick to them. A lot of people complain about the Jobber sync. And really, if you operate Jobber like you would your accounting software, you will have no problem.
yeah,
It's just when there isn't really strong accounting processes in place, or maybe you
hmm,
don't understand how it pushes over to Jobber, that's when things become an issue.
yeah,
Or, if you sync one time and then you shut it off and then you turn it back on and then you shut it like that, it doesn't it
right.
doesn't work well. It breaks things.
It's
You
it's
have to.
mind blowing to me that people don't use Jobber like across the board.
Oh,
I
I've
like
worked with
it's
several
like
companies that won't use it for
why?
invoicing. They will not use the request form. They
It doesn't
don't
make
want to
any
use,
sense.
yeah, and a lot of people don't understand that there are two different job types in Jobber, and they kind of mean different things, but it's more your end goal, what you want
Hmm,
that job to perform like in Jobber.
hmm,
So, and really, if you're a Jobber user and you're listening to this, play around. Jobber is like the most forgiving CRM on earth. Like everything can be fixed, everything can be done, undone. Just play
yeah.
around, see how one step leads to the next, and keep up on your dashboard. Like if your dashboard is a hot mess, you're losing money. I
Right.
promise. You have
Yeah.
jobs that should have been closed and invoiced. You have invoices that should have been collected on. You have customers that are angry because they can't figure out their account and you don't know where their account's at. So just it's really, really important, like awaiting um or action required jobs. You want that to be as low as possible all the time. Just know what's in
What
your door.
what industries do you think have that issue more? Because I know like for painting it's pretty cut and dry. Like we schedule a large job that's going to take us like let's say 4 days to do. We put it on, it goes from a quote, it's approved, we put it on the schedule. As soon as the job is done, my guys close that job and invoice it. The invoice is sent and it's paid. Like,
I
boom.
think the problem is that it's usually like a business structure that's causing the issues.
Okay.
So if there's a lack of trust in letting, like if let's say the quote wasn't created the way it was meant to. So somebody doesn't have the grow plan, they put a whole bunch of extra stuff in their quote. It's like, oh, well, just tell us what you want. First of all, when the customer sees that, they're like, oh my God, this costs $100,000. I don't want it.
Hmm.
They're not looking at your quote like you are. Then, if that gets pushed over into the job and the job's not set up properly, you also have issues. And if people don't really trust their techs to see any information on the job, that becomes an issue. There's a lot of that in the trades where you just don't trust their employees, and it's actually really damaging to the business most times.
Yeah.
Um, or people haven't trained their employees on how to use Jobber. They just say use Jobber,
Yeah.
and
That's a good
they
point.
don't understand that you can close a visit without closing a job, without, you can add line items to a job without it being invoiced. You
Yeah.
can make an invoice, but if you don't send it to the customer, it sits in drafts. So
Yeah.
like there has to be like a watchdog with Jobber, like somebody
Hmm.
that is dedicated to checking up once a day, once a
Right.
week, whatever, to make sure that everything is as it should be. And if you
Yeah.
see like crazy high numbers, you have to fix it. You
Yeah.
can wait till your slow season if you want, but you
Hmm.
have to fix it.
Right.
So those are
Man.
my biggest things that I see. It's just
Yeah.
people scared to close jobs or delete visits. Like they don't
Hmm.
know the reaction to the action that they're taking. So then they just
Sure.
leave it, and that becomes their downfall with Jobber 9 times
Yeah.
out of 10. But
Yeah.
I've worked with a lot of CRMs. Jobber is the easiest. It is the most
Hmm.
turnkey, and it is the most customer focused.
Yeah.
So it's great for customers. They love it.
Yeah. I mean, I've absolutely loved being a customer of Jobber. We only have a few minutes left. I'm going to try and wrap this up. I want to really drive home that with Jobber, for me, it hasn't just been about the software and like meeting my needs as a business there, but also just their support. Like the
Mm-hmm.
community that Jobber has built is incredible to me. Like
It is.
the their employees are and their support team is incredibly helpful. The Jobber entrepreneurship group is amazing. I was personally a recipient of one of their grants in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So Jobber's doing a lot to invest into the home services industry and give back and make a difference there. And so I've really felt that personally. I mean, I've gotten like just little personal like cards from like my wife and I we
Yeah.
had a miscarriage when was it, last year or that, like, I think it was last November. um
Mm-hmm.
we found out we had a miscarriage, and like the Jobber team had heard about it, and they sent me a card and like, hey,
Aw.
we're so sorry about the rough year and all this, and I was like, wow, like that's amazing.
That
So
is.
I think they really just care about the community of home service
Mhm.
business owners, and that not only reflects like in everything that they're doing to try and like make the software better, but just in how they care for their customers. And I think they really are dedicated to that. So that's another reason why I will be a Jobber customer for as
Me
long as I
too.
have my home service business. I mean,
Well, and they're
they're
very
incredible.
receptive. Like, I know people feel like they don't make changes or they're not listening, but they are.
Oh, for
Like,
sure.
it's just they've grown substantially as well. They have to test these things. They can't just like roll it out. And what
Yeah.
works for one, like they service such a big cross section of industries what works for painting does not work for HVAC. What works for
Yeah.
plumbing does not work for, I don't know, like chimney sweep or pest
Yeah.
control. So it has to be something that works across the board. And they are very, very, very like interested in end user experience. Like they had a survey for end users, like just field techs. They didn't want to talk to the business owners. And I love that
Right.
because that is who uses Jobber. That is really who needs to understand it. And
Hmm.
the Jobber app is very easy to use. They've really
Yeah.
kept it simple. There are a few things that obviously it doesn't have that the desktop option has, but I think it's incredibly easy for anyone to use. Like, even if
Yeah.
you had Spanish speaking employees, now there's a Spanish version, but when there wasn't, there was really only two buttons that you had to know what they did for the most part.
Nice.
So, and you could make your line items in Spanish too, if that was
Right.
going to be something that was holding up people from using the app. So
Right.
yeah, they're conscious of who's using it and who their market is, and I love that. I want them to continue serving small business. Like it is
Hmm.
okay to outgrow Jobber, but it is so good for small business and owner operators.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
yeah.
it's been great for us. I mean, we, you know, at my peak of like how many of like max number of employees I had on there, I think at one point I had like, 14 to 15 employees on Jobber, and it worked amazing. And so
Yeah, it
I've,
can. And with
yeah,
integrations now, it's the sky's the limit, really, if you want to
yeah.
make it work.
And
But
I
yeah,
think, Jobber, like you said, over the years, I've seen them grow and add features that I've wanted and evolve. And so that's another thing. Like, I think they're very forward thinking. So,
mhm.
um, you know, I hope there does not come a day that I have to say like I've grown, and that's why I have to get rid of Jobber.
I
Because
don't think you
I
will. Like
love,
it's possible to keep growing with it, right?
yeah,
I mean, they've moved to like franchise models and things like that. So
yeah.
yeah, I think it is something you could keep long term.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, hey, Janine, it has been such a pleasure speaking with you. And it's obvious to me that you are like a Jobber expert wizard. And
Super fan.
so,
I call myself a super fan.
a super fan. Yeah.
But
So,
yeah, I definitely I've got it kind of mastered inside and out, and I can help anybody. I mean, even people that can't afford the expense of working with me, my inbox is always open.
right.
Like, got a
Well,
quick question, shoot it my way. I'm fine with that.
how can somebody connect with you if they're interested in your services or just having a conversation with you? What is the best way to connect with you?
So I pretty much live on the Jobber Entrepreneurship page. So if anybody wants to reach out to me on Facebook, they can do that. And it's just under my name. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me. And then I have a website, homeservicebusinessgrowth.com, and that is for my kind of consulting services or helping people learn Jobber through Jobber training. And then last is the Home Service Pro VA. If you do want to look into domestic outsourcing in Canada or the US, I just started a directory. It's still growing. We're getting people into the different kind of buckets of help that you might need. So you can definitely visit that page. Sign up is free. We just want to know that you're a real business looking to work with a real business. You can contact VAs right through that page. So if anyone's interested in that, they can visit that website or just reach out to me again. I'll kind of guide you through it.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. Thank you for that information. To those of you who are listening to this episode, I hope that you've enjoyed it and that you've gotten a lot of value from everything that we've shared today. I am passionate about helping you to build the business of your dreams and get off of the ladder. If you are enjoying this podcast, please subscribe to it, turn on notifications, rate it, leave a review. Please share it so that we can help more people. And if you'd like to support me or support the show, check the links in the show notes. I would greatly appreciate it. We'll see you next time on the next episode of the Off the Ladder podcast.